Thank you. Welcome. Bienvenidos. And let's start it. The title of this presentation is Liferay, my BFF. Not just my best friend forever, but also backend for frontend. I think Liferay can be called both, right? Let give me you a context for the history of how Liferay has been known by customers and partners. And Liferay has historically been the platform of choice for consolidating and customizing the user experiences. What we use Liferay for to build a digital experience for our customers in our portals and government portals and enterprise portals. These is our some kind of our strong attributes in Liferay. So Liferay is known about by your robustness, scalability, modularity, and open source, of course. Also, we have native integration, out of the box integration, for example, with single sign-on, role access based access control, and the possibility to build custom fragments, custom objects. And that's why I was joking that Liferay is also best friend and also back end, because whatever you need to build in Liferay in the back end side, you are able to do. In the past with Service Builder, and now with objects and OSGI modules. But the current challenge that I've been seeing in the consultant field this year, last year, is this growing demand to consume external APIs, strictly protected by OAuth. And this presentation is about an out-of-the-box way to configure this integration. So a quick overview about OAuth, just in case someone here is not familiar with. OAuth is an authorization framework that grants limited access to our source. So instead of using your username and password in every request, you're going to use your username and password once to get a token, and then you're going to use this token to authorize your access to a specific resource. It's more secure because you're not exposing your username and password in every request, and you have only a limited life token, so a short-lived credential, which we call access token, all right? And how many of you is not familiar with OAuth? Everyone knows OAuth very well. so we heard about OAuth every day, but this is just an overview. OAuth is more than that. There are different flows in OAuth. I'm going to focus in a specific flow, which is called credential flow, client credentials flow, sorry. Okay, and yeah, the consumer use this access token and put this access token in the header of the HTTP request message, okay? And this is our point. We need a mechanism to manage this token securely in Liferay, right? So here's a general diagram, how these APIs, modern APIs works, how we integrate with those APIs. So we have a client that can be a mobile app, fragment in your Liferay portal, a page in your Liferay portal, it's the client. This client needs to access an external service or external data that is in an external server, of course. This is important because historically, we used to use Liferay as a container of all service and all data. But nowadays, when you start a project in Liferay, that project generally is already has data and service in another API. So it's not about putting everything in Liferay, but integrating Liferay with pre-existing data and services, right? So the workflow here is this client needs to get a token that needs to communicate with an authorization server to get a token, this yellow arrow. And once it has this token, it's going to use this token in the next part of the flow to access the research server, the green arrow. Okay, so the client consumes data and service. The auth server provides a token for authorized clients, and the research server exposes data and service when a valid token is present. Okay? So let's put a real use case to help to demonstrate. Okay? Let's imagine a flight status service. I was using one of these flight status when I arrived in Madrid. This is for some of you know interface because it's a Spanish flight company with red colors, and you need to figure out which the company. So the client here is the flight status page, this one. If you go to the company page, you're going to see this front-end component where you can find your flight status based on flight number and flight date. This flight status page needs to consume an auth server, get a token, and then consume a flight status API to get data about the flight status, right? But what is missing on this workflow and this architecture? The point here is that the flight status page is a client-side application. So in a client-side application, I mean an application running in a browser, you have security vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities if you are getting the token and storing the token in the browser itself, right? This token and also the client ID and client secret will be exposed in the browser and can put your application and your company in security vulnerabilities, okay? Like XSS attacks and token interception and other kinds of security risks. Okay? So the proposed solution here is to put in the middle of the client and the auth server and the search server a BFF, is a backend for front-end service, right? That we are going to use Liferay to develop a backend service, put this backend service in Liferay that's going to proxy every message between the client and the research server. Okay? So Liferay as a BFF provides a backend service to securely manage the tokens acquisition. And all security complexity moved to a security backend. So instead of having this complexity in the front end, we're going to move all this complexity to the backend. The backend is going to handle the token acquisition. Backend is going to be responsible to embed the token in the HTTP header and do the communication, right? The only thing that front end needs to do is call Liferay BFF endpoint. Very simple implementation in the front-end side. Okay, now let me demo to you what this is about. So this is a mock auth server. So what I'm exposing here is a mock flight status service, right? It's a Node.js application, okay? And it has a token endpoint, okay? That's going to extend a valid client ID and client secret. We are going to extend for a valid and token with a short live token, right? And we also have an endpoint to expose flight status, okay, based on a flight number and a date. Okay. And we also need a front-end page. So let's create a fragment here right now. I'm in the risk to creating this right now live, but yeah, it's going to work. So here in Liferay, I'm going to create a new fragment that's going to be called flight status. Okay. Oh, right. I'm going to create the fragment right now. So it's flight status. Okay. So let's ask for Gemini create for us a front-end fragment. So I'm going to ask AI to create a Liferay fragment with HTML, CSS, and JS file to a flight status page, flight number, a flight data, date. Date must to be passed via query string or via HTML form filled by the user. The flight status service is a BFF, so no need to handle the authorization. Okay, so the only thing that front end needs to do is go to Gemini and create the fragment, and Liferay is going to handle the authorization and security complexity, right? Here is the endpoint inside of Liferay. Okay, this is generic, so you can create how many OAuth clients you want. You don't need to write any line of code because it's a OSGI model that is built to be used in a generic way. So the only thing you need to do is create OSGI file configuration. I'm going to show you. But yeah, so this is our endpoint. Okay, OAuth BFF, here the name of my client, proxy, and then the path that I want to call in the resource server. Okay, so let me show you. Here is our Node.js application, external server application. It expects to be called in this endpoint, API version 1 flight status. So this is what our BFF in the backend is doing. It's calling this endpoint on behalf of the front end. Okay. You can use your Gemini companion, Gemini assistants, or your web browser agent AI, whatever you want. Okay. So here is the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. I took some copy before because just in case internet's not working, so I'm going to use this, right? So, oops, here. So let's create our front-end component. This is the HTML, the GS, JS, and the CSS. All right. Let's publish and put in our home page. Fragments, flights, drag and drop, publish. Okay. Now, even in a unauthenticated session, we'll have our flight service working. Okay. Backend is being called. I'm going to show you. Let me just increase the log level in the server administration. Log levels. This is the name of the package that we are installing in Liferay. It's still a customization, but luckily it will be merged into the product sooner. We'll see. Okay, I'm not promising anything. Just Marcel Tanuri. Let's put in the bug here. So whenever I call From the front end, our external flight status service, the back end is proxying that request. Okay? So we are doing the request on behalf of the front end. Back end is calling the external API, and also back end is handling the token acquisition and embedding the token in the header. Okay? So why I'm showing this? Because it's a very simple solution. I've been done this multiple times for multiple customers, but every time we need to build a new backend service for each new project. The idea here is to share with you a generic solution. It's a software library. So you don't need to create a new backend anymore for every new API integration, right? The only thing you need to do is to install this OSGI model, okay? And for every new OAuth client, you only need to create a OSGI config file which represents that OAuth client. So here I'm creating a flight status OAuth client. I'm configuring client secret, client ID, scope, service-based URL that is going to be used by the Liferay to proxy the message, and the token endpoint that's going to be used by Liferay to extend the token, okay, to get the token. Backend is also doing cache, handling the cache of this token, so it's not going to overload the authorization server with too many requests, because token is going to be cached until its expiration date, okay? Date's time. What else? Oops, sorry. Here. Okay, so Liferay BFF model maximize security by keeping tokens in the backend instead of the front end. And front-end developers can focus on UX, not complex security flows. Okay, this piece of code is available to be used or to be improved. Okay, it's in the GitHub. This is the GitHub link. Okay, in the readme file, I left all instructions about how to install and how to contribute as well. And that's it. Thank you.